Hi, buddy.
Hi,
Hey,
Chris.
mate.
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Very good indeed.
Oh, it's nice to be
Thanks
here.
for coming along
Oh,
today.
no stress.
And let's start by finding out, how did you get into music?
I've been doing music pretty much my whole life. I got into it, I think, just as a kid. Started playing the piano, 5 or something. Started singing in my local church.
And did you
Yeah.
have some lessons with piano?
Yeah,
and singing?
I had some piano lessons, luckily, But other than that, it was just tinkling or just doing whatever.
Experimenting, and listening to records,
Yeah,
and
hearing sounds.
things like that. And what instruments apart from piano do you play? Do you play any other instruments?
So yeah, mainly I play keys stuff, so synths, pianos, e-pianos. But I also play the bassoon.
Oh, fantastic!
I guess that's my other main instrument.
Quite a difficult instrument to play because it's a reed instrument,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it's a weird instrument for sure. But I don't know, I like it. It's fun. I don't play so much anymore though. And a little bit of guitar, bass, and the computer.
Yeah, well, the computer is one of the main instruments today, isn't it? With
Exactly.
sampling
So
and
got to know how to play the computer.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Try to do whatever, if there's an instrument, I'll try to play it, but I won't be very good. So,
I'm not sure about that. Yeah. You're pretty good at all the other stuff you do.
I don't know.
Were any of your family an influence on you?
No, not really. No, I think both my parents they're musical-ish people, but I don't really think they had an influence on me that much musically. I mean, so much as they chose what to listen to in the car. I guess that was an influence, but I didn't really. There wasn't anyone who was kind of.
So there was no other musicians in the family.
No one who was really kind of
Who were your early influences in music?
I think it's a pretty boring, obvious answer, but the Beatles were definitely, especially as a kid, just listening to all those albums, especially Abbey Road. That was a big influence in how I kind of viewed, music, like how songwriting and, singing and playing, whatever. Apart from that, I guess a lot of, as a child, all of the stuff that I used to do in, church was like a Catholic church, so lots of Latin music, old school kind of stuff, which is nice as a kid, to get a groundwork and harmony.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I think as I got a bit older, Pink Floyd is another pretty obvious answer, but that was definitely influencing me, kind of come 14, and then a lot of just, I guess, kind of 90s hip-hop.
Yeah.
It's probably another big early influence on some stuff.
Yes, when it first started to really come into the mainstream, wasn't it? Around about that time. It was a lot more underground before then, I remember that time. Yeah. Who are your influences today?
I think it depends what I'm doing, I try to do a lot of different kinds of music, so I'm never really doing just one of the same thing. So, if I'm making some kind of atmospheric-y piano kind of thing, maybe I'll be looking at someone like Sampha for inspiration, or if I'm doing some kind of proggy kind of poppy thing, maybe I'll be looking at Supertramp, or if I'm it's all, if I'm doing whatever
so
it might be,
just looking at different genres for inspiration and then taking something.
I think Supertramp is a big one right now. I love how Supertramp wrote songs.
Great band.
Yeah.
Did you go to music college at all to study, or self-taught?
Yeah, I went. I've definitely been taught and self-taught at different times. I was at university for music for a year, but then I dropped out because I thought it was a waste of money.
Yeah, well, I have to agree with you there.
Yeah, I think it depends where you're going, what you're doing, and who you are. If you don't know what you want to be doing yet in life, you don't know if you've got the skills yet to do it, then maybe going to a performing college is a good thing. I was studying academic music, and it was just, there was some emphasis on performance, but it was mainly just talking about boring things, which I had no interest in. I just wanted to play shows.
Was it mainly classical?
A lot of classical, some modern, some jazz.
But it was more of a theoretical point of view.
A lot of analysis of, context. I remember I think there was one essay on, was Beethoven a feminist? I kind of thought, what's the point of this? No, he wasn't. Of course he's not,
it didn't exist back then.
Why do I don't know. I thought it was a little bit pointless, to be honest.
Maybe a pointless question, but was there anybody at the music college you went to who inspired you?
I think they all inspired me to go and do my own thing and not do what they were doing.
So
because I didn't want to end up like any of them.
Was what inspired you to go and do your own thing.
So,
well, that's an interesting point, and something that people could take on board. Have you worked with anybody who's had a real impression on you in the way that you go about your work, or maybe you've taken ideas from musically?
Yeah, definitely. Lots of people. I've got one friend, Will. I don't know, working with him, I'm always just amazed. He's a producer. I'm always amazed. It's called Sugiwa on Spotify. Yeah. Just the way he works is crazy. You know, he's so quick, so like on it, and then he's, you know, even if you feel like, oh, it's not the take, he'll manage to make it. You know, it's just kind of like making music in the moment. I feel like, because I don't know, quite often before you know, working with him, I'd just be very much getting like, oh, okay, it's got to be this thing, I've got to craft whatever, and it's like seeing how you can just make magic in 20 minutes instead of having to think for months. I've got another friend of mine, Paolo, who's also a producer. He told me one thing. He was like, you have to, this Italian guy, he's like, you have to embrace your mistakes, Buddy. And you know, it's true. Like if you make a slip up and you think, no, it's wrong, like that might be the most beautiful part of the song, you know. So little things like that.
It's funny you should say that, because if you listen to a lot of tracks recorded, certainly in the old days of analog, you didn't have the opportunity sometimes to go and overdub something.
And do it 40
there
times.
May not have been the finances. Certainly today there wouldn't be the finances. Are you a studio musician, or do you play live as well?
I do both. I like both. I love playing shows. If I could, I'd probably play shows every night. But if I could, I'd also be in the studio every night. So I think there's something special about being in a really good studio session when, you know, like you're making a track and you know it's going to be, you know, it's going to be a good one.
You can tell there's going to be a banger, can't you? You know? Yeah.
But then it's also sometimes, you know, it's not, you don't get that immediate kind of rush that you do when you're doing a show, you know.
Well, I suppose the difference there is that with the studio, you're in a confined area, and if you make mistakes, there's no comeback, as it were. You know, whereas live, it's there for all to see, and you've got to keep on going. And also, there's that nervousness that can actually produce great performances from playing live. Yeah,
for sure.
It's
I think it's, I don't know. It's also
if you're enjoying watching this video, please consider smashing that like button and subscribing to my channel so that I can keep on bringing this free content.
You know, you might know you're in the studio and you make a track and you know it's not going to be released for a year and a half or something as well, and it's kind of like, oh, I just want to see it out. But if you're live, you're doing it there, it's there in the moment. You know,
Absolutely, yeah. And they're two very different feelings, aren't they? What do you think of the music industry today compared to, say, maybe 10 years ago?
It's a weird industry.
It always has been.
Yeah, I think it's you know, such a saturated market being a musician, you know, especially being an artist. You know, now there's so many artists knocking about, you know, a lot of whom are really talented, a lot of whom aren't that talented at all, and it's kind of weird navigating your way around the industry now. I guess is the priorities are so different to what they were 20 years ago or 10 years ago massively. Or 5 years ago, and it's always changing, you know. It's different today than how it was 2 years ago, and that was very different to how it was 2 years before that. What do I make of it now? I think it's in an exciting-ish place compared to the last couple of years, you know. I think more power is being put into the musicians' hands. You know, especially with things like TikTok taking off, you know, you can be anyone and just kind of promote your things really easily, you know, which has just been difficult to do in the past, you know, through other social media platforms.
So becoming your own publicist.
Basically. But then again, it's, you know, at the moment, musicians are expected, artists are expected to do everything for themselves, you know. So you know, the record label or the manager or, you know, the publicist or the lawyers, whatever, they only really do small amount, you know, the paperwork, and the rest is on the artist. I think that's hard, you know, especially for a lot of artists. You know, they're not like, I'm like this, you know, I'm not particularly good at organizing like 200 different things at once. So, you know, I'd rather just focus on making music, you know, whereas now I think 20% of the time is spent making music, and the rest of the 80% of the time is, okay, how am I going to make content? How am I going to do this? How am I going to promote this? How am I going to find a show? How am I going to, you know, it's stuff that really you should just be worrying about making music, but it's not how it works now. There's too many musicians out there.
There's a lot, because it's become more accessible because of technology. Sure. Records, so you could actually sell records back in those days, and that's where you made quite a lot of your money. A lot of your money was done touring, and that has taken over today as the main function of getting money with merchandise.
I think as well, the other thing about the industry that kind of scares me, not me so much, just I feel like, I'm not doing so much artistry at the moment. I'm just doing more writing and for other people and playing and whatever. So it's not so much an issue for me, but for people I work with, is the shelf life of artists now. I think it's so much shorter than what it used to be.
What's your favourite genre of music, if you have one?
I don't have one. I like pretty much every genre of music. I mean, I think there are now like 20,000 plus different genres of music on Spotify, which isn't the be-all and end-all of how you define a genre. But I don't think I have a favourite genre of music. I think I love lots of different,
Brilliant. Well, I think that's the way to go. I'm pretty sure.
There are a few I don't like as much.
Yeah. Well, it's all music, from my point of view, all music is good music.
Yeah.
It just depends on what floats your boat. Also, along with that, is there a particular medium that you prefer to listen to music on? Are you purely like you listen to Spotify? Do you listen to vinyl tape?
Yeah, I like listening to records. I'm an album kind of person. I like putting on an album. I don't really do playlists or singles. I like listening to an album and getting stuck in it. So I like records.
That's a cool thing, and I think more people, especially the younger generation, are starting maybe through their parents' records collection, are starting to realise what an album is, what goes into it, and the fact that it was a concept.
Yeah, for sure.
And it had a message behind it. Well, that's it, and that goes back to what we were talking about earlier with recording and sometimes outside influences, like maybe some wind or something that can add to that, definitely. And also, I suppose, with media such as YouTube and Spotify and so streaming basically, a lot of it is compressed via the source, and so that will definitely have an effect on the final outcome of. What is your most memorable moment in music? Have you got one? Putting you in the spot here.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess there are a few.
What is the biggest crowd you've played in front of, do you think?
A few thousand people.
That's pretty good.
But
and where was that?
That would have been, I used to sing at the Royal Albert Hall.
Oh, right.
But this was when I was a kid. So I would have been 11.
Yeah. But still, that's quite a monumentous, not a lot of people get to play there.
Yeah. It wasn't the Royal Albert Hall, it was the National Opera House.
Oh, the National Opera House.
National Opera House,
yeah. Well, again,
different place, not quite as big, but that was cool. I don't remember a lot of it, but I did it every year for like 3 or 4 years. So, right. And then I think since then, maybe 600 or 700 people.
Well, that's still good going.
Then, yeah.
But it all builds confidence as well, doesn't it? Because standing up, doing whatever, even if you're just making a speech in front of people, is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
When you were younger, doing that, the National Opera House.
Opera House.
The National Opera House. I believe so. Yeah. That would have stood you in good stead just from performing in front of a large number of people.
Yeah.
For later.
Definitely, helps.
Getting up on stage. And
I think, being, I mean, I was lucky as a kid to get lots of experiences performing in front of, a lot of people. It definitely helps you.
Which artists have you played with, if you're allowed to say?
Yes. So, I mean, I played with a band called Tugboat Captain.
Okay.
Played with a band called Ruskin. Played with a band called Pleasure Barge. Played with a singer called BT. Played with another singer called Remy Martin. Played with a rapper called Malik Polo.
Right.
Played with another rapper just called Vels the other day.
Cool.
And
I know you've played with Monk in the Woods.
And Monks in the Wood, yeah. And I playing a show, I think, in a couple of weeks with this guy, Kieran Booth. That sounds like fun.
Cool.
He's a rapper. Probably done quite a few other things that I'm forgetting.
So would you say the majority of the music that you're either writing for or performing with or producing is more hip-hop based? or is there
a lot
variety?
of it is, yeah. A lot of it now is actually, yeah, in the past like year or two, 3 years, probably 4 years. But it's either that or just bands or pop or you know, just kind of everything. I've performed lots of like jazz stuff as well.
Yeah.
But that would just be by myself. Yeah. So basically just everything at the moment. I'm just kind of some soul things, some rock things, some pop things, some rap things. Whatever's going. I like playing everything, to be honest.
I think as a everyday gigging musician, that's what you do, isn't it?
Yeah.
You take what you can get.
Got to be a chameleon.
Yeah,
you know?
And you've got to be able to morph and
for sure.
Move into different areas. Yeah. And going on from that, are you a producer as well as a musician?
Yeah. So I produce and mix.
Do you have a genre that you tend to work more in with that, or are you quite open again, like with the performing?
Yeah, I've done recently. I've done quite a bit of like lo-fi kind of stuff, producing wise, with a friend of mine. So that's what I've been focusing on recently. But mixing wise, I've been doing a lot of rock recently, and then some pop as well. I produce quite a bit of pop. Produce some rap, some pretty much everything again.
So
I guess
an open book. And just morphing and moving between.
And it's something that I'm not. It's not something I've got. Decades of years of experience in. Something I've only been doing for 6 years or something. So I want to do as many things as I can and just try. Play the field, as it were. See, maybe this is something that.
Yeah, well, I think that's how the world has gone in music these days, and that you've just got to keep an open mind.
Yeah.
Because you never know what's around the corner.
That's
Buddy,
true.
It has been an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Chris, thank you for having me.
Thank you, mate, and great seeing you.
Yes, likewise.
And have another time again soon.
Yeah, try out some of the guitars.
Yeah.